Everyone, welcome back to the second part of our AI art generator. In the first part, we have done all the setup and understand the architecture of the project, that how we're going to design and work on our project. In this video, we're going to start working on our backend API. So I'm going to do a little bit changes in the architecture, which I have already discussed in the last video. So instead of working separately in the API, we're going to start working in the complete project. So this is what we have. Simply copy this entire. This is what we have generated in the last video from MongoDB. So make sure to watch the first video. Copy that one. And that's what I'm going to simply import here, because in this connecting file, we are including the API, the backend part, the front end part, and that's all is coming together. So that's what we're going to start working straight away in the connecting file. So first thing, we're going to simply paste our environment variable. So let's paste the environment variable here. We got it. Make sure to do that exactly. And the rest should be fine. Now I'm going to simply open this folder in VS Code once again. So let's do one thing. Let's close the. Now come back here, VS Code, and now go to open, go to desktop, and this is the folder we have created in the first video. So let's open that one, and here we have the three folders. So I'm going to simply open this one. Make sure to do that. Open it. So we're going to write the complete code in this one from start to end. So let's close this one. Let's make on the big screen. And you can see this is what we have discussed extensively in the last video. So this is all the environment variable for our backend. Looks good. Let's format this one, close this one, and open up your terminal. And we have to install the packages. So we can come back here, and if you come back to the packages and file here, I have imported all the front end and the back end, all the important library which we need to build this application. So simply type npm I or install, both will work fine. But before we install the package, we have to check the node version. So I'm using this particular node version like 22.3.0. It's the latest one. So make sure to use the exact one, or if you have the previous version of Node, it will work fine. But if it creates any problem, make sure to upgrade that, which I have already explained in this particular video. So let's clear the terminal. This is, I have to install all the packages. And here you can see all the packages got installed, and here it's displaying 4 vulnerabilities. Simply ignore this. You don't need to change the package version and run any one of these commands. Simply clear your terminal, because we want to use the exact version. If you run any one of these commands, it's going to change the version and it's going to create a problem. So we're going to go with the exact version. Simply clear the terminal, and that's done. You can see this is the node modules, in that we have all the packages of our project. So that looks good. Now we can come back to the API, and we're going to start working on API first. After that, we're going to start working on the front end, the context management, and we're going to bring everything together. So this is what we have. Inside that, we have this modules. So we have two modules, post and user. So let's start with the module first. So first we'll start with post, close this one. And in that, we're going to import a couple of things. So first is going to be Mongoose, and that's coming from our Mongoose package. Now we have to build the schema. So we'll say post schema. It's coming from new Mongo schema, and we'll take the object of the data. Inside that, we can display the field which we want to take as a data. So first is going to be the user, and here we have to create the reference between the images which user will generate. So in that way, we can able to identify that which user created which image. So that's the reference we have to build. So we'll say type is going to be Mongo schema types and object ID. So in that way, we can able to have the reference of the ID. We got it. We'll say ref is going to be user, because we want to make the reference with the user. Then we'll take this required field. It's going to be true. So this is for user. Now we got it. Now we can simply come back here. We can take the prompt which user will provide. So it's going to be a string. Type is going to be a string, and we have to trim. We don't want to have any space at all. So let's trim that. It's going to be true. Now we can come back here. We can take the negative prompt, and it's going to have the same thing. Type is going to be a string, and trim is going to be true. Then we have to take for the size, that what is the size of the image we want to generate. So it's going to be a type is going to be a string, and it will have a trim. It will be true. Let's format this one. Now we can come back here. Then we have to take the quality. So in V3 model, we have multiple quality, but in V2 model, we don't have the quality. So that's the data we're going to keep track here. So let's provide the quality. Type is going to be string, and trim is going to be true. Then we have to take the, let's say, quantity. So in V2 model, we can create up to 10 images, but in V3, we can create only one. So that's the thing we're going to keep track here. So it's going to be a number, and we'll say trim is going to be true. Now we can come back here, we can take a style. So we have a different style, so type is going to be a string, and we'll have a trim is going to be true. Now we can come back here and we can take this AI model, that which model we are using. Simply copy this one, whether it's a v3 or v2. Then we have to take the AI meg, and in that we're going to have the same thing. So let's take this array of object, because we can have up to 5 images. This data will be available in the array. So let's take that. We'll take this, let's say object, and in that we can simply create the reference. So it's going to be a type string, and it will be called required is going to be false. We got it. Now we can come back here. Let's change this to AI images, and this will be fine because it's going to be have array. Now we can simply come back here and we can replicate this and change this to likes, that how many likes a particular post is getting. And here we have to build the relations. We'll say MongoDB schema dot types, and in that we can have the object ID, and this will be called reference is going to be the user. Make sure to give a capital U. Once we have this, and here we have to get the time when this particular post was created, so we can get it with very easily. We can say timestamp, it will be true. That's our entire schema for creating a single post. You can see looks good. Prompt, negative prompt, size, quality, we have quantity, style, AI model, AI mega, we have the images and likes and timestamp. Now we have to simply export our models. So we'll come here, we'll take a variable called post, and we're going to use this model, and in that we have to pass the post, and we can pass our schema, post schema. You got it. Now we have to simply export the post too. So we'll say model dot export, and we'll say post. So that's the entire schema for our post model. I hope you guys have understood. It's very basic. This is the import we are doing, then we are creating the packages, and then we are simply providing all the field which we want to take it. Looks good. Copy this one entire. Now we can come back here, and now we can simply start working on the user. So just click here and paste that one, because it's going to have the similar structure. We have to simply change the field name. So we're going to have the mongoose. Okay, now change this ones to user schema, and here we have to do the change. So this will be user name, and here we have to simply remove this one and add the field. So it's going to be a type is going to be string, then we'll have this required is going to be a true, then we'll have a unique is going to be a true, we'll have a trim is going to be a true, and the last one is going to be to a lowercase is going to be a true. So these are the fields we are taking under our username. So simply copy that one, and now we have to simply work on the email. Simply copy and change this to email, and this will be this. So it's going to have the exact required field, because email is important. They have to provide the email. This is good. We got the email. Now we have to change this to, let's say, password, and we can simply come back here and paste here, remove this. We got this string and required field. Now we have to simply change this credit. So when the user will create an account, we are providing 3 credit, so they have to buy the credit if they want to create more images. So this is going to be a number, and by default I will give them 3 credit. You can increase that, it's totally up to you. Then we can simply remove this one, and we're going to have this like, because we have to change this field to post. That's how we can create a relation, and this is going to be a user reference, and it will be a post, and this is fine. Here we have to change this to user, and here we have to say user schema, and our entire user schema is ready. We are importing the mongoose. We have this 5 fields. Got it. Now we can come back here, and we got this. Close this one, and now we can start working on our middleware, because we have to tackle the token error. We have to tackle the global error. So we can come back to the middleware, and we're going to start working on our error components. So let's come here. We'll take a variable called error handler, and it's going to be a function. In that we're going to take error, and we're going to take the request and response and next. That's generally what happened in the backend API. We have these three fields available: request, response, exec, next, and error component. Now we have to simply call the function, and in that we have to build the logic. So first let's console log out the entire error track. So we'll say error dot stack. So this will give you the entire stack of the error which is happening in our application, so you can able to pick that where it's causing the issue. Got it? Now we have to build the if statement. So we'll say if error, and we have to build the instant with our class constructor. So we'll say instead of going to be a custom error, so this is the component we're going to assign in our control and pass the message, and it's going to generate a error object for us. We can simply say return response dot status is going to be a error status. Then we'll paste this JSON, and in that we can simply pass the message of the error. So we'll take this error dot message. That's the simple approach we have. So what we are doing, we are getting the dynamic status of the error, because when there is an error will occur, we're going to simply pass the status code and the message, and that's what we're going to pass in our custom error. Else we can come back here, we'll return this response dot status is going to be a 500, because if the error is not created by user, means that error is happening in our server, so we have to display the server error. So we'll say JSON error, we'll say internal server error, simple, which will keep the track of the error caused by user and by the backend. Now we can simply build our class this class. So we can say class error custom error. We have to simply extend error, and in that we have to simply build. So we'll take the constructor, in that we can simply pass the message, and we'll pass the status code. By default is going to be 500. Good. Inside that we can take our super, because we want to inherit. So we'll take this message, then we can take this name, and this is available in our constructor dot name. That's how we can access. Then we have to access the status, which is also available in the status, and we have to simply pass our error. In that we can say capture stack trace, and that we can simply pass this and this constructor. So that's the only thing we have to do. We are inheriting the super class, and then we are simply deconstructing the error and the stacks from the capture stacks array. Pretty good. I have covered this tons of time in my previous project and in my API course as well. So we can simply export this module. It's going to be export, we'll say error handler and custom error. Perfect. And that's the only thing we have to do here. So this is our custom error, and that's what we are importing here. So come back here. Now we have to simply work on a verify token, because we have to check the authentication. If the token is available, we have to simply match with our database, and that's what we're going to work on it. So come back here. First we have to import our JWR, and that's coming from our, let's say, JWP web token, JSON web token. Once we have this, we can simply come back here, and we have to simply import the error component we have built. So that's coming from the same folder, same directory, error, and in that we're going to simply take this custom error, simply copy this one, and that's what we have to import. So these are the two imports we are doing. Now we can simply come back here. We can build a function called verify token, and this is going to be called when the user will try to fetch the information from our database. So we can take this request response, and it's going to be a next. Let's call this. Inside that we can take a variable. So first we have to get the token which is available in the request. So we'll say request dot cookie token, and this particular keyword is very important. That's what we're going to assign when we're going to send the request, send the cookie, or when you're going to receive the cookie in the token field. Once we have the token, we have to check the token whether it's exist or not. So if it's not exist, then we have to simply throw the error message. So we are using our error component we have built. In that we have to simply pass the two things, the message and the status code. So we'll say you are not authorized because you are not providing the cookie, and we'll say 401, which is stand for unauthorized. But if everything is good, we have to simply match with our database. So we'll take this JWT verify. Inside that we have to simply pass the payload, which is the token we are getting from the cookies, and we have this environment variable which help us to generate that cookie, which we have here is the JWT and that's what we have stored here. So we are using this JWT secret, and this is what we are utilizing for generating the cookie. So that's what we're going to use it. Simply copy and paste here, and we're going to simply verify it. So once we have that, now we have to simply run an async function, because it's going to verify the both the data synchronously. So we'll get couple of response. So it's going to be an error or it's going to be a data. So these are the two things we'll get, and now we have to simply build that. So we'll say if there is an error, then we have to simply throw the error. So we'll say throw new custom error, and we can simply pass that token is not valid, and we'll pass the error is going to be 403, forbidden error. But if it's valid, then we have to simply set the data, then we have to send the data in the request. So we'll take this user ID, and we'll have the information called data dash DAW. So in that way we can able to have the data in the request body about the user who's trying to interact with our application. So looks good. I hope you guys have understood the logic we have implemented here, and that's the only thing we have to do. Now we can simply come back here, we can call this next. So it will go to the next middleware function, because this particular function is a middleware. It will run every time whenever we're going to make a request on any one of the endpoints. Perfect. Now we can simply come back here, and I'm going to get this one and paste here, and from here I can simply remove this and simply take this verified token, because that's what we're going to simply export here. Perfect. So we are importing this, we are building this function, we are getting the cookie from the request, then we are checking there is a cookie available or not. If it's not available, we are throwing the error message, but if it's available, we are simply matching with the cookie we are getting, and we have in the secret field and validating that. If it's the cookie is valid, then we are setting the user information in the request object, so we can utilize it in our other function. That's what we are doing, and calling the next middleware. Simple. Now we can come back here, and now we can simply start working on our controller. So close all of this. Now we can come back here, close this one. We are done with this model, we are done with this middleware, and now we can start working on controller. So click here. So first we'll start with the auth controller, then we're going to work on the post and then the user. So click on this auth controller, and we're going to import a lot of things. So first thing is going to be our user model, which we have designed. So it's coming from the model folder, model dash user. That's what we got it. Now we have to simply import the bcrypt, because we have to encrypt the data. So that's also coming from our package bcrypt. Then we have to import the JWT, because that's coming from our JSON web token. Then we have to simply import our custom error, and that's coming from the middleware dash error. We'll say custom error. These are the imports we are doing. It's very simple. Now we can simply come back here, we can simply build a function. So let's do and build the skeleton first. So let's build this export module. So will they, and in that we're going to export all the function we're going to build it. So let's build the skeleton of the function which we're going to build it. After that we're going to build each function. So first let's design the function. So we'll say const, this will be register controller. It's gonna be an async. It's going to take request, response, and next. Let's call this, and it will take the try and catch, and that's the first function we're going to build for register controller. So simply copy this one, close this one, copy paste here, and this is going to be our login. Copy paste here, and this will be our call logout, and copy and paste, and this one is going to be for refetch, and this particular function will call every time whenever the user is going to make a request, because we need the data of the user. So it's going to return me the data of the user, and we'll say user. So these are the 4 functions we're going to design here in the auth controller, and that's what we have to export. So let's do that. Simply post here, copy paste here, logout, and we have this fetch. So these are the 4 functions we have exported. Now we're going to start working on the register controller. So open this one, and that we're going to take a couple of things. So come back here. First thing we have to get the password, and this all data is available in the request, because when the user will provide the name, email, password, confirm password, so those data will be available in the request, and from there we can access it. So we'll take this password, we'll take the username, we'll take the email, and this data is coming from request.body. We got it. Now we have to simply take this existing user, because we have to check whether the user is already exist or not. So we can simply call this await user dot find one, and we can do that very easily. All we have to do is to simply pass the field name. So we're going to take this operator which allow us to filter it. We'll say or, and in that we can simply take this array and object, and we'll say user name. That's the first thing, and the second one is going to be the email. So if any one of these two things exist and match with our database existing user, we have to simply throw an error that this user exists. You have to use a different credential. Got it? Now we can simply come back here and we can build if statement and throw an error. So we'll say existing user. If it's true, then we have to simply throw the error. We'll say custom error. We'll say user all name or email already exist, and we can throw an error message is going to be a 400. Got it? Now we can simply come back here. If it's good, then we can simply continue ahead and register the user. So we can come back here, we can take this salt, we'll say await bcrypt, and in that we're going to simply call this gen salt, and we have to simply pass the number. So this number represents that how strongly you want to encrypt the data. The higher the number, the more time it will take, and it's going to be a CPU intensive. But in industry we follow between 10 to 14, so I will go with the 10. I don't want to make it more CPU intensive. So we got this solved, and now we can simply hash the password, because we cannot save the password as it is. If someone's trying to hack our database, they will know the username and the email ID, but they will also have the password and they can easily able to log in, and that's not what we want. We always hash the data of the user and then we can store them in the database. So that's what I'm going to do it. Let's hash that. We'll say hash password, and here we can say await bcrypt hash, and we have to pass the data we want to hash. So it's going to be a password. You can hash literally anything, but we are hashing the password only because that's what we do. So we have given the password and we're going to provide the salt. So it's going to encrypt our password. Now we can simply come back here and we're going to simply build the object and provide all the data the way we have designed in our model. So we can come back here, we'll take this new user, we'll say new user, and we can simply pass all the data we have built. So first we're going to simply deconstruct it because all the data is available in the request body. So let's spread that out, and here we have to simply pass the password we have generated, the hash patterns, not the normal password. So that's what we're going to simply provide it. So in that way it will automatically take all the fields which we have designed in the user model. Got it? Now we can simply come back here and we can save this user. So we'll say await user new user dot save, and we can simply send the response back to the user that your account is created. So we'll display the status code is going to be 201, which stand for create, and we can say JSON, and in that we can simply send the entire user data, and that's the only thing we have to do. So first we are getting this data, then we are checking the user existence, then we are hashing the password, and then creating the user. And here we can simply pass to the next middleware. If anything goes wrong, it will take us to the error middleware we have built. So in that we can say next, and we'll pass the error. So if anything goes wrong, it will automatically take us to the error handle middleware we have taken. Perfect. So that's our register controller. Now we have to build a login controller. It's going to be a quite simple one. So we can come back here. First thing we have to get this user, and here we have to build a condition. So we'll check this if request.body.email means user will make the request, in that he will provide the password and the email. So we can say if it's there, then we have to simply use this await user dot find by one, and in that we can simply try to find the user in our database based on the email. So we'll say request.body.email. That's the one condition. Else we can simply check with the username. So we'll take this await user find one, username, we'll say request.body.username, because you can allow the user to have the logging based on email or username. That's why we are checking with this condition. We can come back here, and here we can simply build that. So we'll say if user not exists, then we have to simply throw the error message. Customer will say user not found, and it will be 404, which stand for not found. Then we can simply come back here. If it's there, then we have to simply check for match, and we'll say await bcrypt, and we have to simply match the password we have hash and the password we are getting from the user. So that's what we're going to simply compare it. So we have the function in bcrypt package called compare. In that we have to simply pass the request.body, the password which user is providing, and you have to pass the password which is hash in the database, user password, and this password will come from database in hash form. So we got it, and here we have to check if it's match or not. So we'll say if it's not match, then we have to throw the error message. Customer will say wrong credential, and it will have a error 401. Got it? Now we can simply come back here. If everything is good, then we have to send the cookie back to the user browser. So we can come back here, we can take this const, in that we can have the password, then we're going to simply deconstruct the entire data which is available right up here, and then we can take this user and we can simply have the doc. So this will give us the entire data about the user, password and the data. Once we have that, now we can simply build this token, and this is what we have to send. So we'll say JWT, in that we can say sign, and we can simply create the token. So in that we have to simply pass the ID, is going to be the user dot ID, and we have to simply pass our secret which we have. So we'll take this env dot jwt secret, then we have to simply provide the expiry, that how long I want to make this cookie valid. So I already have that. So if I come back to my environment variable, you will see that I'm going with 90 days, this one 90 days copy, and that's what I have to provide. So after 90 days this cookie will be expire, and user cannot use this cookie, they have to re-log in. Now we can simply come back here and send the response. So we're going to send the cookie back to the user browser. So we'll take this token, and this particular token variable is very important. You have to keep this exact key, because this is what we're going to target for authentication and data generation. So we have the token, and here we have to simply send the token. Status is going to be 200, and we can send this JSON. We'll have the data, and we're going to go with next middleware if anything goes wrong, and that's our logging function. So we are getting this user, checking for the condition, user exists or not, then we are matching the password, then we are generating the cookie, and that's what we are sending here. Perfect. So this is our logging controller. Now we're going to start working on a logout. So it's going to be a very simple one. I just want you to give a try that how you can allow user to log out. The logout can only happen when you remove the cookie from the user browser. So let's do that. I hope you guys have tried. Now we can simply come back here and call this next if anything goes wrong. Now we can simply come here, we can take a response, and that's the response straight away I have to send. I have to clear the cookie from the user browser. So I'll say clear cookie. In that I can pass this token. So this is the key I have to target, which I want to clear, and set a new variable. In that I can say same site, it will be none, and this will be called secure, is going to be true. Once you're done with that, you can simply come here, we can take this status code is going to be 200, okay, and we can simply send our JSON message, is going to be user logged out successfully. And that's the only thing you have to do. All you have to do is to simply remove the cookie, and the user will be logged out from the application. Perfect. Got it? Close this one, and now we have to work on this fetch user controller. So it's going to give us the information about the user. So it's going to be a next. Then we can come back here, and we're going to take this token, because this token is available in the request body, and this particular function will get called every time there is a page reload. So we'll take this request cookie token, then we can simply check, we'll say verify, we'll pass this token, we'll take this process dot env jwt secret, and we have to simply take this async, because that's what asynchronous behavior will have. So we'll say error, and we'll have the data. This is the two data will available, and that's what we have to check. So if there is an error, we have to simply throw the error message with the new custom error, and we'll say error and the 404. So whatever the error, this error can generate two things, whether the cookie is not available or the cookie is invalid. So in that scenario, this particular error will trigger. Now we can simply come back here. We got it. And actually we don't need this try and catch block out of this. We need in the if block. So what I will do, I'll simply remove this one and remove this one and come back here. And here we can simply take it right up here. We'll take a try and catch, and then we can call it next. We can come back here and we can take this const id, and this id is available in the data. Then we have to simply get the user. So it's very easy. We'll use this find by one, and in that we can simply pass the id of the user. In that way I can have the user. Once I have the user, I have to simply send the entire user object, means entire user details, in the response. So we'll say 200, and that's the entire user data we are sending. Perfect. And that's the only thing we have to do. Very simple function we have built. First we have got the cookie, then we have done the validation of the cookie. If it's there or if it's throwing any error, so we are throwing the error. At the end we are simply sending the response, the entire user information, and that's what we are exporting here. So perfect. So we are done with this auth controller. This is the register, this is the logging, this is the logout, and this is the fetch, refresh, sorry. So looks good. Close all of this. So now we can start working on the next file. So come back here, and this time we're going to start working on our post controller. So click here and we're going to start importing. So first thing is going to be our XCS package, because we have to make an internal call and we have to store the data in our database. In the database we're going to store the name, but the file, the image which will be generated by OpenAI, we have to store in our local file system. So we're going to use XCS library because it has a method which allows us to simply clone a file and store in your own system. Because when you will create the image, the OpenAI will generate the image and it will give you a URL, and that URL will be valid for 60 minutes. After that the URL will be no longer available. So we have to use that URL to create a clone of it and store in our file system. So that's what we're going to do it. So let's import this XCS. Then we can come back here, we can take this FS module. Then we can come back here, we can take this sharp, because this is the package will help us. Then we're going to take this another one called path, because we have to define the destination where we want to store it. And we're going to take this called post module. It's coming from module / post. Then we have to take this user model, because we have to create the user reference. Then we're going to take our error component, and that's coming from our error, and it will be custom error. So these are the imports we are doing. Looks fine. Now we can start building the skeleton of the function we're going to design. So it's going to have a lot of functions. So let's take this const. It will be generate file name, and this function will generate the name of the images which we're going to store in our internal file system. So it's going to take a couple of arguments. So let's build the skeleton first. This is the first function. Now the second function is going to be for create post with images controller via v3 model. So we have multiple model in OpenAI, DALI v2 and DALI v3. So we're going to use a separate function for v2, separate function for v3. So it's going to take the lot of data, request, response, and next. Another function for generating the name for v2 model. So we'll say generate file name multiple, and it's going to take argument. Then we can build our v2 models. We'll say create post with images controller dash v2, and it's going to take this request, response, and we have next. Then we can simply come back here. We can take another function called get post controller. So this particular function will give all the posts created in our database. So it's going to be enacing request, response, and next. Then we can come back here. Let's build a next function called const get single post controller, and it will say async request, response, and next. Copy, and that's what we can simply copy this one and paste here. This will be get user post controller. We got our user post controller. Simply paste change this to called delete post controller. Come here, paste, and this will be like post controller. Come back here, this will be our dislike post controller. So that's the entire function. We go to code it. So one by one, there is going to be a lot of function, and all of this function we have to export from here. So we'll say module exports, and we have to simply pass the function. So first one is going to be the create v3, This will be v2, and we'll have this get post controller. Then we'll have this get, let's say, single post controller. This will be get user post controller. Then simply come back here, we'll take this delete post controller, like post controller, and this will be dislike post controller. So these are the functions we are exporting. Now let's start working on the very first function, which is going to generate the name dynamically for each one of the file. So it's going to receive couple of things. So it will take the user ID, and it will take the all post length, and this length is going to be a unique number which we're going to assign to every single post. So that's what we have. Now we can simply come back here, take a variable. This will be date. So that's how I'm going to construct the name of the image. So we'll have the date as well. So we'll take this date, we'll call this to data string, and we can call this replace, and we're going to go use this global one /g flag, and we're going to give this dash. So that's the notation we'll have between the gap. We got it. Now we can simply come back here, and we have to return the name. So we'll take this template return. So first is going to be the user ID. Then we're going to take the second one is going to be the length of the post. So it will start from 1, 2, and it will go all the way, like as many posts the user will create. So post length, and then we're going to simply attach the date and png. So that's going to be the name of our file. Perfect. Now we're going to start working on the next one. So we are done with this. It will take this user ID, all post, we are constructing the date, and then we are simply returning the name of the file. So let's come back to the create v3. We can simply come back here. It will take the variable. So we need couple of data. So it's coming from user ID, and this is coming from our params. So when the user will try to create the image using the v3 model, they have to provide their ID of the user. So that's going to be a unique identification, and that's how we can make the reference. So we have this user ID available in the request param. We can come back here. Now we have to simply get the prompt. Then we have to get this negative prompt. Then we have to take the size, style, image, URL, and we'll have the call reserve prompt. And all of this is coming from the body. They'll say request.body, because when there is an image will be created successfully. So these are the data we're going to pass it. We have this. Perfect. All of this prompt is getting from the body. If you come back here in the model, you can see we have called the exact name. So make sure to keep the spelling as it is, exact name. Perfect. Now you can come back to the post controller. Now we can simply come back here. We'll take this, call all post length, and we're going to simply call the function we have built. So all post length, we have to simply find the post. This will return all the posts. Then we have to calculate the length, post length, and it's available in the all post.length. So we'll get the total length of the post we have in our database. Once we have that, we have to generate the file name with capital N, and we already built the function called generate file name, and in that we have to pass the user ID and the length. So it will return the file name. Once we have that, now we can simply build the path, and we have to construct. So we'll use this path package. We'll call this join. We have to pick the directory. So dash directory name, and here we have to call the name of the directory. So we have to go to that particular. I have to go to the ///z. So I'm into the post control. So I have to go into the main directory, and there I have my folder. So I'll give this folder, and this will be file, the name which we have generated. Perfect. So that's how we can create a path for the file. Now we can simply come back here, and here we have to take a try and catch block, and we have to simply use this user. We'll say user find by ID. In that we have to simply pass the user ID, so we can get the user details, and we have to check whether the user is exist in our database or not. So we'll say throw, and we'll throw the error if the user is not exist and the ID is not correct. User not found 404. If it's true, then we have to simply go ahead and we have to continue. So we'll say this response, and here we have to make an API request. So we'll say XCS We'll say in that we have to simply pass the URL. So this is the URL of the image. Then we have to pass this response type is going to be our array buffer, because we are using the URL to for generating an image and storing in the file. So this method is important. Array. Then we have this max redirect. It's going to be 5. Now we can simply come back here and we can build the image buffer. We have this buffer and we can call this from. In that we can pass this response.data. Once we have that, we can simply say await, and we can use our sharp package. In that we can simply pass the image buffer, and we can give this PNG because we have to generate that in PNG, and we'll say to file, and we can pass the file path. So it's going to generate the file and assign that. Now we can simply come back here. Once we have done with that, now we can simply build our new post and save in our database. We'll say new post, and we have to store the data. So first is going to be the user ID. We already have it. Then we have to provide the POM AI model which we are using. So we are using the v3 model. So we'll call this AI image art DALI v3. Then we have to give the prompt is going to be a prompt. Then we'll give this reserves prompt, and this reserve prompt we have. Then we have to give the size. Then we have to give this quantity, and we can come back here. You can see this is the quantity and quality we have. So order is very important. So this is going to be a quantity A1 because DALI 3 can create only one image, not multiple image. So we can come back here on top, and we can say quality is going to be HD. Then we can come back here. We'll take this style, and this style data is available in the style. Then we have to simply give the image file name, and we can take this image and is going to be the image URL. So that's what we are calling. So everything is good. In that way we can able to save the data in our database. Looks good, perfect. Now we can simply come back here, and we have to simply call this new post save, and we have to simply call this user post. We have to create the reference that which user have created, and we have to simply push the new post. In that we can pass the ID, and we can simply take this user.save to store the data in the user field as well. Then we can simply come back here, and we can simply send the response. So status code is going to be 201 for create, and we can simply send the message. We'll say post created successfully, and we have to send the newly post created post, and we'll say new post, and that's the only thing we have to do. Perfect. And at the end we have to simply call this next error. So if anything goes wrong, it will take us to the error component, error middleware, and that's the entire function we have for using this v3 model for creating. So we are getting the ID, we are getting the props, then we are getting all of these fields, generating the name, then we are checking for the user, deconstructing the image URL, and then we are simply storing in our database and sending the response. Perfect. We copy this one, and that's what we're going to utilize here. So before we start working on v2 model, we have to work on our next multiple file name generator. So this is the one which we're going to work. So it's going to take few things. It will take the user ID and the index. We can come back here. We're going to simply follow the same logic. So we'll take this date, new date. We'll call this to data string. It will have a replace, and we have to use the same global flag G, and we will go with the same expression with dash notation. Now we have to simply construct the URL. So we'll take the user ID. This is going to be the index, and this will be our date PNG. Got it? Now we can simply come back here. We can simply copy this portion from our v3 model function, and that's what we're going to simply use it in v2 model. So come here and paste here. That's what we got it. I can see one thing. So we get this ID, we get the prompt, and we get to get this, and we have to do a few changes. So we can come here and change this to, let's say, number, because in v2 style is not available. You have to go with normal, and we don't have this reserved prompt in the v2 model. So only these 5 data we have to receive from the body, and simply remove this one. We got it. Now we can simply come back here and take this entire try and catch till here, and that's what we can simply paste it. So we have to check anyway for the user. and that's what we are doing. Here we are making axis response, and before we make that, here we have to simply come back here and we have to take the download, because in v2 the user can generate a single image or array of image, a multiple image. So we have to run a loop and then we have to make a call and generate the file. So we can take this download and convert image. So we'll say await, we'll use this promise.all, and then we can simply call this, and we have to come back here, and this particular image URLs will contain an array of image URL. This is, make sure to do that, and we have to run this map async, we'll say image URL with capital URL, and it will take the index. Inside that we have to simply construct the file name. So we already have the function, so we can come back here and we're going to take this portion, copy this one, and that's what we can simply pass here. So we are passing the user ID, and here we have to change this to index. Perfect, and this is fine, just keep it as it is. Now we have to simply get this portion and we have to call inside this. We have to make the call, and here we have to simply pass the image URL. That's what we are passing. Simply get this buffer, paste here, and we have to get this, so it will generate our file. Now once we have that, it's going to return the file name. Perfect. Now we have to simply store this, so we can simply come back here. We have this new post, and here we have to do the changes. So ID is going to be there, this is going to be v2, and here we have the negative prompt. So I can come back in the v3, and here I can see the problem. So simply replicate this one, and this will be prompt, copy and paste here. I hope you guys have noticed this. So we got the actual data, and that's the exact thing we have to do in our v3 model. So this looks good, we don't need to make any changes. Let's have a quick look. Perfect. Now close this one, come back here in the v2, and here we have to do the same thing. This will be the prompt, copy and paste, and perfect. And here in the reserve prompt, we don't get any reserve prompt in the v2 model, it's only in the v3 model. So we'll say no available in AI image art DALI v2 model. Got it? We don't have the quality in v2 model, so it's going to be a normal, and this will be number, because you can generate number of images. And here we have to change this to a normal in the style, because it's going to generate a normal image, and the rest would be fine. And here we have to pass this download and convert image name, and this will be the image URL, which is the entire URL will generate by the AI. Perfect. I hope you guys can understand that what exactly we have done. It's pretty simple. And then we are simply saving the post, creating the reference with the user, and sending the response back to the user. So we are done with this create v2. Now close this one. Now we have to work on the get post controller. So it's a very simple function. I want you to just give a try. I hope you guys have tried. Let me code that. So simply come back here. It's going to take a try and catch, and we have to simply take this next. And here first we have to simply get all the posts from our database. So we'll take post.find, and this will return all the post, and I want to populate. So like the post is there and different user will create the post, so I want their name as well, so I can display. So I want to populate that. So we'll say populate user and user name. These are the information I want to populate in the post about the user who created the post. Now all we have to do is to simply send the response. We'll take the status code is going to be 200 JSON, and we can say post all post, and that's the only thing we have to do to get all the posts from our database. We got it. Now we have to work on the next one. Get single post is going to be a similar one. So first thing we have to get the ID. So the ID would be available in the params. So we'll take this post ID, and that's coming from our params. Once we have the ID, then we can take a try and catch, take this next error. Now we can simply get the post. So we'll say post await post find by ID, and we can simply pass the post ID. Then we have to make a check if the post exists or not. So we'll say if post doesn't exist, then we have to simply throw the error message. So we'll check this response status code is going to be 400, and we'll say JSON message post not found. Perfect. Now we can come back here. If it exists, then we have to simply send that post. So we'll take this return post await post dot find by id. In that we can pass the post id, and I want to populate the information about the user as well. So we'll take this user, and I want to take the user name as well. Once we have that, we can simply send the response. So status code is going to be 200. JSON is going to take this return post, and that's the complete function for getting a single post. Perfect. Close this one, close this one. Now we can start working on the next one. So we have already done with the single post. Now we have to work on this get user post controller. All the posts created by single user. So we can come back here. We have to get the user ID, and that's what we can access from our request params. Once we have the user ID, we have to simply take a trying catch and throw this error. We can come back here, and first thing we have to find the user. So we'll say await user find by ID. Then we have to check if it exists, then we have to continue, otherwise we have to throw the error message. So we'll say throw new error. We'll say user not found. It's gonna be 404. But if user found, then we have to simply say user post. We'll say await post find, and then we can simply pass the user ID. So it's going to give me the entire post created by a user, and we have to populate the data about the user and username, and then we have to simply send the response. So we'll say response status code is going to be 200. JSON, we'll say post, this will be user post. Perfect. So that's the entire function for getting all the posts created by a single user. So getting the ID, checking for the user existent, then we are getting the post, and that's what we are returning. Then we have to work on the delete post controller. So come back here. First we have to get the post ID, which is coming from the params, request.params. Then we have to simply check the post existence. So we have to simply take this error next if anything goes wrong. Now we can come back here. We have to check the post. So first we have to simply find that post to delete, and then we can simply pass the ID, and it will give us the post. And here we have to check in if statement if it exists, means if the right post. So I'll throw the error called new custom error, and then we can say post not found 404, means you have provided the wrong ID. And here I can see a warning, so I have to simply change this to new. So that's what you have to do the check. Then I have to check for the user whether he actually creator of the post or not. So we have to get the user. We'll say find by ID, and that I can simply pass the post detail, because this post detail will contain all the information about the post, including the user information. So I'll get this user. Then we can say if user is there, then continue, otherwise throw the error message. So I'll say user not found. Else we can simply take this user dot post, and we'll use this user dot post. I have to filter it, and there I have to simply check for the post ID, and we have to simply call post to string, and I have to simply compare it up to the ID, and I have to convert it to a string so I can easily able to compare it properly. So this will give us the post and relation with the users. Once I have that, I can simply call this user dot save. Then we can say post to delete. I'll say delete one, because I would delete that particular post. Then I can simply send the response. So it's gonna be 200 JSON, and I can say message is going to be the post deleted successfully. Very simple. I hope you guys have understood. So I hope you guys have understood that what exactly we have done. We got the post ID, then we are getting the post user, and then simply deleting it. Perfect. Now we have to simply work on the like. So we can take the post ID, then we can take this user ID, and this is also coming from the body. Then we can take this trying catch and the next. Got it. Now we can simply come back here, and we have to simply find this post, and we have to also find the user. So this will be the post, and that's what I have to change here. I can paste here, and this will be user, this will be user, and here I have to provide the user ID. Paste here, because I have to do the check for post and the user. Perfect. Let's align that. Got it. So we could check, we have done the check for post and the user. Now we can simply come back here. We can take this if block and we'll say that post dot likes includes post user ID, means the likes will contain all the IDs which user have liked. So we are matching with their IDs. There we can simply copy and throw this message. We'll say you have already liked. So if the user ID is already exists in the like array, then we have to simply throw this error message that you have already liked it. Else we can simply go ahead and we can simply like that. So we'll take this post likes push and we can simply push the user ID and we can say post.save. Then we can simply send the response. Status code is going to be 200 and message is going to be that post like successfully. Perfect. And we'll have the post data. So that's our like function. Very simple. Got it. Copy, and that's exactly the same thing we have to do in the dislike as well. Still we have to make the exact check, and this is going to be fine. Here we have to check, and here we have to simply do the changes. So take this, we'll say post like filter, and it will take an ID to string. We have to simply compare it. So we'll say if it's not equal to the user ID, then I have to simply like it. Okay, if it's not there, then I can simply come back and save it, and we'll say post dislike. Perfect. Very simple. We have just done the reverse thing. So this is the entire function we have written in our post controller. This one is v3. This is for generate name, v3 multiple, v2 we have get post, single post, and we have close all of this. We have the single post, this is the delete post, this is the like post, and this is the dislike post, and here we are exporting that. So what we have done first we have imported this is the first function, this is the second, third, and all of the function, and at the end we are exporting all of this function. So that's what we are importing. So we are done with this entire portion in the post controller. Let's move ahead to the next file. Now we can simply come back user controller. So we can come back here in the post controller, and we have to simply copy this portion, and that's what we're going to import here in the user controller. We got it. Remove this one. Now we have to build a couple of function here as well. So let's build a skeleton. This will be the get user controller. It's going to be an async. It will take this request, response, and next. It will take a try and catch block, and we'll kick this next. Copy, and that's what we have to paste here. This will be called update user controller, and the last one is going to be called buy credit. Let's call this buy credit. Perfect. So these are the three functions we have to build, and then we have to simply export this module export, and we have to export this get user controller, update user controller, and buy credit. Perfect. Now we have to simply work on our first function. So open this one and come back here. We have to get the user ID, which is coming from our params. Once we have the user ID, we can simply come back here and check for the user existence. So we'll take this user find by ID. Once we find that, now we have to simply check. We'll say user, if it's exist. If it's not exist, then we have to throw the error message. We'll say no user found, and it will be 404. But if it exists, then we have to simply take this password, and we have to deconstruct the data, and this data is coming from the user because this entire data is already available. Once we have that, now we have to simply send the data. So we'll take this 200 JSON data. Perfect. So this will return the data of the user, get user controller. Perfect. Now we have to work on this update user controller. So come back here. We have to take the user ID, and that's coming from the params. Then we have to simply call this update data, and this particular data is available in the body because the user will try to update his account. So all the data he will provide in the body, and we can simply come back here. We can simply check for the user. So we'll say user to update user find by ID. Then we have to check for its existence, so we'll say user update. If it's not existed, then we have to throw the error message. We'll say user not found, and it will have an error 404. Otherwise we have to simply update the user. So we'll build this object assign, and we have to update all the data, and then we can simply pass user to update, and this will be update. Perfect. And it's going to do all the update, and we have to simply say user to update, and we have to save the data, and once it's get updated we have to simply send the response back. So 200 JSON, and will that say message is going to be user updated successfully, and we can simply send the user update data. Perfect. So that's the entire function for updating the data and account information about the user. Perfect. Close this one, and the next one is going to be a buy function. So user can simply call this function and increase their credit, buy their credit. So we can come back here, and we have to get the ID. So simply get this portion, and that's what we can simply call it here. Then we can simply take this user, and that's what we can call it here, because we have to check for the user. And now we can simply come back here and say if update data has own property, in that I have to define the property which I want to update individually. So I will go with the credit, because that's the number I want to change it, and because of that we can able to track that how many credit user have, and based on that he or she will have the access of generating the images. So we'll take this user token data, we'll call this credit, and we have to simply update that. So this update data we have in the update data.credit. So if you come back to the module, you will see here we have it, and this is what we are updating. By default we are providing 3, but when the user will buy the credit, we're going to simply increase that. Perfect. Now we can simply come back here, and we have to simply save the data. Once it gets saved, we have to simply send the response. So simply copy this one, and that's what we can simply send it here. Perfect. So that's the only thing we have to do here. I hope you guys have understood the logic, that what exactly we have done. We have successfully built the function and all of that. So we are getting this user, custom error, this get user controller, update and buy, and then we are simply exporting it. So we're done with that. Now we can simply come back here, close this, close this, close this. So we are done with the controller, we're done with the model, middleware, model. Now we have to work on the router. So let's check one more time. Looks fine. Here we have the middleware, looks fine. Here we have the model, looks fine. Now we have to work on the router. So let's start with the auth router first. So we're going to import a couple of things. First is going to be the express. Then we have to import all the function we have built. So we can come back here, we'll take this and we can import the function. So we'll say / controller auth, and we can come back here, go back to the controller, and there we have all this exports. Simply copy this one, and that's what we are importing here, paste here. Then we have to build the router. So we can come back here, this is going to be a register, and we have to build. So you can come here, we can have to build the router. So we'll take this const router, we'll say express.router and call it router. So we got the router. Now we can simply construct the URL. So this is going to be the register. We'll say router.post, because when the user will register, they will make a post request, and this is the endpoint we'll build. So we'll say register, and we're going to simply call the register function we have built. So we'll say register controller. So this is the first router. Now we can come back here, this is going to be a login. Simply copy and paste here, and we'll say login. Login also going to be a post request, and here we have to say login controller. Copy and paste here. This one is going to be called logout, and this one is going to be a get request. We'll say log out, and we'll say log out controller. Now the last one is going to be for our fetch current user, and this will say refetch and call the function. So we got all of this function, all the routers looks fine. Now we have to simply send the router. So we can simply say model exports and router. Perfect. I hope you guys have understood. It's pretty easy. We're done with that. Simply copy this one, and now we have to work on the other one, the post one. So simply paste here in the post, and we have to do the changes. So we can come back to the post controller. Now we can simply copy all of this and come back to the post router and paste here, and we have to change the location. So this will be the post controller, and that should be fine. Now we have to simply build the URL. So we can simply come back here and copy this portion and simply paste here. So this will be call our create v3, and it will have the ID of the user. And here we have to call create post with image controller v3. Simply replicate this one, and this will be v2, and this will be v2. We got it. Now we can simply come back here, copy and paste here. This will be get, and let's remove this one. It will be all. So this particular function will return all the posts created in our database. We already have the function called get all post controller. Simply copy and paste here. This will be called single, and it will have the post ID. So we'll say get single post controller. Copy and paste here, and this will be, let's call this user, and we'll say user. So this will return all the posts created by user. So we'll take this, remove this, called get user post controller. Copy, paste here, and this will be called delete, because we have to delete it. It will take this delete, and it will have the post ID. So let's change this to delete post controller. Now we'll simply copy and paste here. This will be called post. It's gonna be a like, and this will be like post controller. Copy and post, and this will be a dislike. So we'll say dislike. It will have this. Perfect. So we got all of this URL looking good. Now we have to simply export the router, so we can able to access this. I hope you guys have understood. It's a very simple logic. First we are getting the express, then we are getting all the function, building the router, and then we are constructing the URL. In that we are passing the parameters like ID, post ID, user ID. That's all we are passing. Perfect. Now we can simply copy this portion, come back to the last router is going to be the user, paste here, come back to the user controller, and from there we can simply get this 3, and that's what we can paste it. Change the path is going to be the user controller, and perfect. Now we have to build the 3 endpoints. So we can come back here, we'll take this router, we'll call this get, because it's going to give us the data. So we'll say user ID, and we have to simply call get user controller. Now replicate this one. This will be the put for updating, and this will say update. It will have the user ID, and we'll say update user, and this is also going to be an update one. This will be credit, and this will say buy credit. We got all of that. Now we have to simply export the router, spokes router, and that's the entire code we have for our backend. I hope you guys have understood and follow along with me. So we are done with this entire code. We're done with the auth, we're done with the post, we're done with the user, then we're done with the middleware, token, then we're done with the modules, post, user, then we're done with the router. Perfect. So we are done with this entire API folder. Now we're going to simply start working on our index file, and this particular file in which we have to write the code which is going to start our front end and the backend on the same route in the index file. So we can come back here. We're going to import a couple of things. So it's going to be take express, because we have to start our server. Then we have to import the Mongo that's coming from Mongoose. Then we have to import the app which is coming from express. Then we have to take the .NET, this particular package, because this will allow us to use our environment variable. Then we can take a cookie parser. It's coming from our package cookie parser. Then we can come back here, we'll take this next, and we have to configure the next because we have to start the front end and the back end. So we'll take this require next. Then we can take this .env, will provide this config, and we have to provide the path from where we are getting this environment variable. So we'll say path is going to be ./config.env. So if you come back here we have the file. That's what we are targeting. Now we can simply come back here, we'll take a dev. So we have to check whether we are in the development and production. So we'll take this product process.env, and we already have this node env. If it's not equal to production, then we are in the development. Then we have to take this next server, we'll call this next, and then we can pass the dev environment. Then we can simply come here, we'll take this handle, and here we can simply build that. So we'll take this next server, and in that we can simply call this function. We have handler, get request handler function. Now we can simply come back here, we can take a variable called auth route, and we have to import all the routes we have built for different controller. So this is going to be auth it's coming from request slash API route and auth. We have to replicate it and change this to, this will be post and this will be user. Come here, change this to user and this will be post. We got the router. Now we can come back here, we can take our path. Path is going to be from path. Then we can come back here and here we have to build that. So we're going to take this slash API middleware and we have to get the error, and we have to error. Then we can simply come back here, we can take this verify token and it's coming from the slash middleware slash verify token. So all looks good. So we are importing these packages, next packages, routers and the path and file. Now we can come back here and we have to build the connection with our database. So come back here, we'll take this port process.env and we have the port which is coming from our environment variable, or else we can go with the default 3000. Got it? Now we can simply come back here and here we have to build a connection with our database. So we'll say mongoose.connect. It will take the process.env and we have to pass the MongoDB URL. So this is the URL we have to pass. Simply copy and that's what we have to pass here. We got it, and we have to say it's going to return a promise. We have to resolve that. So we'll say then, and we'll say console.log that DB database connection successfully. Perfect. Now we can simply come back here, we'll take this app.use and we have to use this express.json. If you don't use this, it will not allow the user to store the data in the database. Okay, so this is very important. Then we have to simply call this use cookie parse. Then we can come this app use, and then we have to provide the upload file path. So we'll say slash upload. We can go to the express.statics, because if we want to access any file, any images from our file system, we have to provide this. Then we can able to access by giving the name, and we can say statics is going to be a path. Path will have this join. We'll take this --dr name and is going to be our upload. Perfect. And that's the only thing we have to do for generating a state file. So whatever data, whatever file and folder you're going to keep inside this upload folder, you can easily able to access that. Once we have that, now we can come back here. We'll take this app use, and here we have to simply build the API endpoints. So we'll have this slash API auth, and we can simply pass the auth router. So when the user will hit the auth URL, is going to take to the auth controller. Simply replicate it. This one is going to be post route and this one is going to be user route, and here we have to do the changes. In the user route, we have to run a verify object as well. So we'll take this verify token. Got it? And here I have to do the change user. This will be the post. So if user make any request on any one of these endpoint, it will automatically go to that particular controller. Perfect. Now you can come back here. You can see this is the route we have. It will automatically take that. Now we can simply come back here. We can say app use error handle, because if anything goes wrong, we have to pass that in our global error handle object function. So we can come back here. We'll say next server, and we have to restart the server. So we'll say prepare. We'll take the then, and we'll take the callback function. So we'll take this app get global, and here we have to simply pass this request response, and inside that we have to simply return this handle, and then we can pass this request and response. So it will start that. Now we have to start our front end as well. So we'll take this app listen port, and that we can simply pass the port, and in that we have to say that app running on port, like the dynamic value, like 3000. And that's how our server and the backend will start together. So perfect. This is the packages, this is the internal import, router, modules, we have the port, MongoDB connections, cookies, routers, and this is the server here starting. Perfect. Now if you come back to the package.json file, here you can see that here we have multiple script. I want to do the changes. So instead of running node, because node will run in the development when you will deploy that. But in the development, I want that whenever I will save the file, I want to restart my server. So for that I have to do the changes. Instead of using Node, I can use Node MERN, which I have already installed. So I can simply paste here, and I can simply paste here in the start script. So whenever I will save the file, it will automatically restart my server. So that looks good. Now we can start testing our application. All the backend code is absolutely working fine. So let's run the particular command. So this is the one we have to run, like start. So we'll take npm run start, and there you can see our application got started, but here I got a couple of error. So okay, I hope you guys can notice the error in the v2 model controller function. It's a response, so it's twice. So I have to fix that. It's a request response. So that's the fix I have to do. So the rest should be fine. Now we can simply close this one, come back to our controller, and there you can see this is the problem we have. So simply change this to request, and this will fix the issue. If you open this one, this time we are getting a different error. It's coming from the router. It's coming from the exports module from auth. So it's a kind of a typo we are getting in the router files. That looks good. Now close this one and close this one. Come back here, go back to the, there's no problem in this, go back to the auth router, because there we have the issue, and I can see the problem. It's module.exports, not only export. So just provide this as, and this will fix the issue. If you open that, if you save it, you can see our database connection is looking fine and port running is 3000. So there is no problem, everything is working fine. I hope you guys can see that how things are coming together. Our backend is absolutely completed. Now we can simply start working on the functionality and sending data to our backend. So looks good. Now you can come here, and I just want to tell you to install this particular extension. It's a Postman, type Postman, and this is a very powerful extension. So instead of going to the Postman interface and just switching between different screen, you can install it in your VS Code, and you can use Postman right in your VS Code. So I have already installed it. You can see it's already enabled in my system. So once it will enable and install, make sure to restart your VS Code and connect your account with Postman. So here you can see I'll click on this Postman, and here I will find all the project I have created in my Postman. So let's click on this. I can go to different tab, and you can see all the post project which I have created. So make sure to create and log in with your Postman account, and all the file things you will find here. So here you will find an option to make an API request. So if you see all of this API endpoints which I have built and make the request, that's all is there. I can simply come back here, and this one is the additional wall. It's not compulsory that you have to use the Postman. I'm just telling you that you can. Here you will find multiple options, WebSocket, like gRPC, and you can use HTTP, and that's what we're going to use it, HTTP. All you have to do is to simply paste the endpoint, and you can able to make the request. So come back here, and you can see our application is running on localhost 3000. So first we have to get the localhost 3000. So I can come back to the browser and come here, click on this, and this is the one. You can see our front end is working absolutely fine. There is no issue. Our index is reflecting. I can get this one, come back here, paste here, and I have to make a get request. So we got this domain. Once I have the domain, now I have to get all the post from my database. So this is the method we have built. You can see this is the post route we have. Simply copy this one, this portion, and that's what we have to simply paste here. We got that, and here we have to provide the specific router which we want to call it all. So if I come back here in the post, you will see this is the all we have. So simply all, that's what we have to take and paste here, and the moment I will make a request, it will give me all the post which is there in our database. So currently you can see I have no post, that's why it's empty array. So our database is working fine. You can see the status code, request time, everything is looking good. And this Postman is additional one. You can use it or you can avoid it. If you want to master Postman, I already have a complete API backend development course, which is this one. You can simply follow that, but for the time being, just complete this project. So everything is looking good. Our front end is ready, our back end is ready. Now we can start working on our actual functions and connect the backend with our front end. And that's the only thing I want to cover. In the next video, we're going to start working on our utility files and make all the connection, all the backend API calls right in our front end and connect with our application. right in the next video. So let's move to that.